Today's guest has spent over a decade inside LinkedIn. Robin O'Connell has worked across multiple roles, countries, and now sits inside LinkedIn's creative studio, helping brands actually get results on the platform. So this isn't theory, this is coming from inside the machine. We get into why most LinkedIn content feels the same, how brands and creators can actually stand out, and what's changing right now across video, thought leader ads, and how people are using the platform. If you've ever felt like LinkedIn is either cringe or confusing, this will definitely help. This episode is proudly brought to you by Sked Social. If you're running socials across multiple platforms and want something that actually keeps everything in one place without the chaos, Sked's worth a look. You can start a free 14-day trial right now. Let's get into it. Robin, mate, it's good to see your face. I think we were just talking off air. Digital Adelaide was the first time we ever actually caught up and got speaking in was it the foyer where all the food and stuff was?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was an amazing event. Feels like years ago now, but it was last year, right?
Yeah, and I feel so sorry for you because you were trying to just eat your lunch, and I'm just literally just peppering you with questions about LinkedIn. You're probably just like, this guy, just shut up, mate. I'm trying to enjoy my chicken breast.
Yeah, I didn't know anyone there, so it was actually kind of nice. You were my lifeline on the day, I reckon. So no hard feelings.
It's one of those ones at the conferences, isn't it, where you're just like buzzing to just find people who you vibe with and just like find your tribe. But went and checked out your talk, obviously on the main stage there, and obviously you run a tight ship, mate. I feel like you do a lot of these sort of things, like keynote speaking and stuff. But where did it all start for you? Like, you've been at LinkedIn for 10 plus years, which is pretty fucking wild. Like, obviously in different countries and stuff. But like, how did you get into this like world of what you're doing now?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's been a long journey. I think I grew up around business. Right, my grandmother had like a grocery store and petrol station. My dad like started a couple of businesses, so always knew I wanted to be in the business world, and just found marketing by far the most interesting part of that. Like, way more so than accounting or economics or anything else that I could find when I was kind of looking at where I should study and what I should do. So studied marketing, did my master's in marketing, and then came into the corporate world, and pretty much came almost straight to LinkedIn. And yeah, that was like close to 11 years ago now. But I started in an advertising operations role. So we were basically setting up campaigns that came in through targeting requests. We were setting up like the targeting and the ad formats way back in the day. We had a photo on the wall of the guy who invented copy and paste, Larry Tesler, I think his name was, because that was basically what we were doing all day. It was a lot of copy and pasting, a lot of like very operational things. So 6 months into LinkedIn, I started looking externally. I was like, I'm done. This isn't really like what I had envisioned as my career. So I was ready to go. But what happened was, as I was looking externally, things started to change internally, and there was different projects happening. We realized we could offshore some of the stuff that we did, automate more of it. There's a chance to get involved in those projects, and basically that then happened for the next 10 years. Anytime I got bored or felt like there was that I had learned everything I could learn in the role, something new would happen, and there'd be a new opportunity and a new kind of wave of change to jump on. So yeah, I've had about 13 jobs at LinkedIn in 10 years. Started in Dublin, moved to Sydney, worked across a lot of different countries, like maybe like 20 plus countries at this stage. And so that's really what's kind of, fed the career, I think, has been the opportunity to change and just work in new environments and do new things. That's kept me here for a very long time. So I went from operations to client-facing roles, working across a few different regions, moved over to Sydney, worked my way up to like leading a team there. Then there was these huge kind of organizational changes, led to a lot of roles being made redundant. So I thought I was on my way out, but then got hired into a different part of the business, more on like the marketing solutions side, into kind of a content role. Learned a lot more about content marketing. I've been through a few different roles now on like the content marketing side of things, helping clients at LinkedIn with their creative and consulting with them on their strategy. And now the team is changing again, and we're kind of forming what's called the creative studio at LinkedIn, which is pretty fresh off the press. and I'm kind of working through that at the moment. So yeah, it's been a journey. It's been 10 years. It feels like a lot more. It feels like I've been through a few different companies, even though it's just been one, with a lot of different job titles and kind of career experiences along the way.
I love that, man. And the fact that like a company lets you progress that way, it's like, all right, we value good people. We know how you learn. And it's like, it's so hard, like hiring for the right fit, I feel like. So when you've got that and you allow people to just expand their skill sets, I'm sure for you, it's like, how cool is this? Like, I keep the same friends. I'm in the same business. I can work on different exciting things. Like, and LinkedIn, I just feel like it's just gone from strength to strength over the years. Like, is that what you've kind of seen, like the growth of just how people use it? Like you mentioned Creative Studio now, like excited to dig into that and why you've gone down that path. But yeah, just, it's pretty exciting what you're doing.
Yeah, I look at the one piece of advice I always have for people in their careers is like to try and like learn to love change. Like change is a scary thing, and it can be very uncomfortable. But I think being able to like embrace change and like learn to live through change and try and get energized by it, it makes a huge difference, because as you've said, it then allows you to explore different opportunities, kind of be at the forefront of what is actually happening in the business. And ultimately, I think it leads to great things like new roles, new opportunities, whatever that might be. But yeah, on the LinkedIn side of things, there's been a huge like evolution of the LinkedIn platform through the years. Like, you know, when I started, it was really thought of as a jobs board, right? It was just where you would go to get a job. And that still exists, of course, today, but it's just a lot more. It really is the professional platform rather than just the jobs board. And so much of people's time is spent now in the feed and kind of interacting with other people. So it's been really fun, I guess, and just interesting to be along on that journey and kind of see it evolve. And yeah, with Creative Studio and with kind of what's happening there, you know, LinkedIn, I think, have definitely realized that there is a need for us to build out more capabilities to help advertisers, essentially, to help you kind of advertise your big brand moments, to like really go big on the platform and to connect with the audience, your audience, in different unique ways. And so we've created this BrandWorks team, and as part of that, we've created the Creative Studio, which is really designed to help you get the most out of your content and get the most out of the message that you're putting on the platform. It's going to look like a lot of different things. There'll be lots more coming on that as we kind of figure it out and as we launch it to the world. But for now, it is definitely a really exciting point of time at LinkedIn, where it has evolved, and I think it's going to continue to change over the coming months.
Oh man, I'm excited for when that all drops. Just thinking about like when I first like started a LinkedIn profile, got it all set up, being in recruitment and seeing what people were sort of posting there, it felt like, yes, we were trying to, obviously, you know, the jobs and things like that, candidates and companies and things, and found it like an awesome tool, like the Sales Navigator and different things like that. It's like with a phone, yeah, it's like you don't really use all the features until you do, and then you realize, oh wow, this is super powerful. So just seeing the growth of just how, and then like just like posting it and treating it more like I'm seeing over time, like how people would treat like a business Instagram or a business Facebook, where it was like updates on the journey of what they're building, the behind the scenes vibe. And I feel like that's what's really been able to like help people capture audiences and build communities and stuff off the back of that. And I think now, especially over the last couple of years, seeing big creators on other platforms come across to LinkedIn because they see the value and benefits in the conversations, not just the posting, you know what I mean? Like then they might not be as big on LinkedIn, but the people that they're talking to in the DMs and the different things that are happening behind the scenes actually like helps in a really like big way.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's become a place where brands can really like build an audience, and creators can build an audience. And I think it's, you know, as we think about like creating content for LinkedIn, or as we think about just growing a brand on LinkedIn, I think that the big danger is that it's a professional platform, and so people come to LinkedIn and think, how do I sound more professional? And it's just such a dangerous mindset to have, because you're basically asking like, how do I sound like everyone else, right? And it's how you end up with this content that is like, I'm thrilled to announce that I'm going to work tomorrow, and I'm humbled and honored to be going to work next week. And here's what The Simpsons taught me about, B2B marketing, and all these other kind of different tropes and kind of, very like consistent ways of talking to an audience on the platform that I think can lead you to just blending in, which is really what you never want to do when you're building a brand. And so when you think about like the new LinkedIn and what LinkedIn is today, I think there's two things that like really guide my thinking on building a brand on LinkedIn. The first is like, people follow people and people trust people and ultimately buy from other people. And so being like personal and authentic on the platform is really, really important. And I know there's like a tension here. It's like, well, it's a professional platform. How personal should I be? We're not talking about like treating it like Facebook or another, platform like that. It's basically showing up the same way you would show up at work in a workplace, right? And often that isn't the way we write, or it isn't the way we, engage or talk when we're writing content for LinkedIn. So the question is like, how can you be yourself, and how can you bring an authentic perspective to the platform? Because that is what people engage with. That's really, really important. And then the second thing then is that, people come to LinkedIn to like spend time rather than to kill time. And we see that in a lot of the research that we do, is that people come with a specific intent, like they're trying to accomplish something. They're applying for a job, or they're connecting with their network, or they're trying to understand a piece of industry news. So the question then is like, how can brands and how can creators connect to that intent? And the way I see it is it's by providing something valuable, right? And something valuable can be tips and tricks. It can be, a day in the life, like a look behind the curtain. It can be an introduction to someone or some brand. Or it can be sharing like your perspective, right, on industry news or something that is happening right now. That is what consistently works. And I think the best creators out there, the ones that grow the quickest, have their personal, authentic point of view that they share regularly. And then they provide things that are really, really valuable. And that looks like a lot of different things, but it's pretty consistently across those two main kind of areas.
Man, I love that. And specifically when you were mentioning it all, like everyone's starting to sound the same with the buzzwords, especially with all this AI slop stuff now. And I'm starting to see, when I started to put myself out there on who I am as a person, like just the way, even like this profile pic for a bit was like a beanie covering my eyes and stuff. And it was just, that's sort of the way I am and how I like to like put myself out there, and not having that fear of like, all right, this is a professional platform, I won't get opportunities because I'm like taking the piss, or that's just the way, but it flipped the other way. It was like, yes, the super stringent ones, that isn't my vibe anyway, and it wouldn't be a good fit in terms of just doing stuff together anyway. So it was like, you really find your people when you be yourself, I feel like. And it's like the fear of putting yourself out there, because I feel like a lot of times it's like defending your thoughts in the comments, because everyone's trying to show off how smart they are a lot of the time. So it's like, how do you really want to start the convo a little bit? Because people are expecting you to engage now with more thoughts.
Yeah. And look, it's something that I think works really well on LinkedIn, is if you can create a post, a perspective, a piece of content, whatever, that generates discussion, that just tends to work really, really well. Like LinkedIn sees that as a very valuable piece of content, because you're provoking meaningful conversations. And again, a lot of the research we do here shows that it's those kind of posts that tend to perform really well. And one thing that's happening right now is that LinkedIn is increasingly coming up as a citation in LLMs, right? So ChatGPT or Claude or whatever is actually quoting LinkedIn posts in order to help answer questions. And we find that the posts that are surfacing more are ones that have 10 or more meaningful comments. And meaningful comments means, it's a couple of sentences. It's not just a thank you very much. And so it might be daunting to think like, oh, well, if I generate discussion and have to kind of keep responding to people, that could be, time consuming and maybe not go well for me. But I would always encourage people to try and get over that like initial mental barrier, because sometimes the community will talk amongst themselves and the creator just needs to pop in every now and again. You don't need to respond to every comment if it does blow up. But that being said, if you're trying to get more traction and if you're trying to, get more views and get more reach, then generating discussion is really exactly what you want to do. And it's probably worth the effort of responding to people, kind of stoking the flames of discussion there a little bit in order to get more people engaging, because that's what's going to get you seen by people and ultimately now through LLMs as well. And so, yeah, daunting that it can result in some really meaningful discussion, but also I think ultimately just what we want to be doing in order to get seen.
I love that. I think for me personally, I think what's made it easier for me with posting has been like the mindset of like making it easy for people to comment something funny, because it's like that's what I would want. Yeah. It's like an easy way to contribute something where it doesn't have to be that serious. So, and not just asking like boring basic questions, like a bit more to it. And I think like it's finding your style, hey, because everyone uses LinkedIn differently. I know people who write these really in-depth paragraphs and things, and I'm like captivated, and other people it's just these short one-liners and things. And I think for me, my sort of vibe and style, it's just you just got to learn by doing it, hey, and just like figure out what you like doing, what feels good, and then get over that kind of fear of posting, because it's just like anything. Yeah. Like if you're posting once a week, everything's riding on this one post to do well, where it's like if you're posting once every day, it's like you don't tend to care as much, like the highs and the lows. So it's just like, just get used to it. Like I've experimented, I've done some crazy LinkedIn posts and stuff where I was like choking an employee saying you can't call HR when you are HR type of stuff. And it's like, that vibe is like, obviously people know I'm kidding, but there was people who were just like, whatever. But it was just like that, it's a real like opportunity to like showcase who you are. And I think a lot of people think like posting is the big thing, hey, but it's like living in the comments. Like if you can, if like people in your audience or community like commenting on their posts, because I feel like a lot of people just like post and expect people to just engage with their stuff. It's like, no, I think you got to be able to reciprocate and do the same for others. Are you seeing like that work as well as in terms of strategy on like how to grow presence on LinkedIn?
Yeah, 100%. I think, like as you said, like everyone does have their unique style, and I think, if someone is trying to give you a playbook of how exactly to approach your LinkedIn page, I would be very hesitant to follow that playbook. Like there's no exact one way to do it. There are tips and tricks that you should absolutely follow, but it's kind of like, it's an ingredient list rather than an exact recipe. Like you can take elements of it and make your own, but following like the exact steps to build a LinkedIn presence, I just don't see it working in a sustainable way unless it's like really you, and it really is kind of tied to who you are. And you made a really good point earlier as well that, in the world where AI can create pretty much whatever you want from a written perspective, like I do believe that the way that you're going to stand out going forward is, again, it's just the only thing that AI can't really copy, which is your authentic point of view and kind of your unique take on things. And so I think that's really, really important. And there is an element of like just trying to get over the cringe, I guess, or the feeling of like, oh, I don't really want to be putting myself out there. But it's like anything else, you mentioned earlier some of the keynotes that I do. Like when I started speaking, I was terrified, like really, really scared to get up in front of people and speak. But I knew it was a career goal of mine. It was something I wanted to do more, is speak in front of crowds. And probably the best advice I ever got was from a guy called Mike Gamson, who was an executive at LinkedIn, who is an unbelievable speaker, like just mix of like stand-up comedian and then just like really smart kind of thought leader. And he showed up so well on stage, and someone asked him like, how do you do it? Like how have you gotten this good? And he said he joined LinkedIn super early, one of the first few employees. They used to get emails into the inbox, like, very early days saying, can you come and speak to students about like what LinkedIn is? Can you come and speak to this crowd? And he just decided, in that startup style environment, it was a very much like build your own job kind of a thing. And he was like, right, I'm going to make this one of my things that I will go and I'll speak to these people. So he said yes to all the invitations. And he said he started off speaking to 20 people, then 50, then 100. And then over time, just became second nature. And that was, what I took from that was, you just have to do it. Like you just start by doing it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but the more you do it, the better you will get at it. And if you ever see someone on stage and you think, wow, that person's a natural, I can almost guarantee you that they weren't a natural, that they've just done it so many times that they look like a natural, but they didn't, wake up one day and become good at public speaking. And I think they probably got there through crazy amounts of practice and just doing it. And so whether you're public speaking or whether you're thinking about sharing your perspective more on LinkedIn, I think the formula is kind of the same. You just start by actually doing it. You build it up until you're much more comfortable. And then you'll look back on this, day one and think, wow, that feels like miles away because I'm just so used to doing it now. And so that's my advice for anyone, is just put yourself out there. It's going to be uncomfortable, but being uncomfortable is a good thing. It means you're growing, you're changing, you're probably going in the right direction.
Oh, I love that. And I think like failing in private too, you know what I mean? When you can test and learn when you don't have an audience yet and you can really find out more about who you are. So don't be afraid to like really push things out there, I think, because I think one of the hard things that I'm battling with now is like, all right, like if I've built up this kind of community and audience on here, how do I keep them engaged with fresh stuff and just different perspectives, and what different things can I get in terms of like creatively? Because I think it's fun personally. So it's like, I think for me, it's thinking about it's like, as long as I'm having fun and like thinking about it and doing that type of stuff, I think like that could be like a good North Star in terms of like how to treat LinkedIn and things like that. But I love that. And I think like one thing you mentioned there was just like doing hard things, like I see people who are like on live TV who absolutely crush it and they've been doing it for like 30 years and you just think, how the hell do they're so on, they're so articulate, they get their thoughts out, and it's like they're the ones who would have gone in, like exactly like you said, done all the reps, done all the, days in a row, where it's just like, I think that's the best way to get the most out of yourself too, is like when you do those hard things over and over again, you become a bit fearless, hey?
Yeah, 100%. And I think like you realize, and it's kind of like a maturity thing, but like you realize that people don't really care. And it feels like if you were to slip up, it would be the center of everyone's kind of universe and it would be, you'd get ridiculed. But people really just don't care that much. And like a great example, right, I think, is that McDonald's CEO video went crazy viral, right? Because of him like clearly never having eaten a McDonald's before. It's such a funny piece of content, right? So you could consider that the worst case scenario, right? Where you create a video and people like ridicule it. The long-term impact for McDonald's and for that CEO is just like so small. Like people just will not care long-term. It's just a storm in a teacup, right? It blows up for a week and then it's gone. And it's kind of like like especially from the brand perspective, like if you think back to the CEO cheating scandal at the Coldplay concert on the Kiss Cam, like, do you know what brand that was? Can you remember what the brand was? Yeah, no, I have no idea either. Like I haven't a clue, and it's one of these things where people have really short memories, and even in the worst case scenario for these brands where something blows up in the wrong way, the long term impact is just so small, and so even in worst case scenarios, it really doesn't have huge long-term implications, like when you're writing content or creating a video. And again, this is the upper end of the scale. This is the executive level. This is the the CEO level. When you think about us as whether you're an executive or a manager or an individual contributor or just a creator, you do have to realize that there is like the worst case scenario is really, really far away. It's not very likely for us. And even if we were somehow to get there, the long-term implications probably aren't as bad as we think. And so I think there is like a degree of, if you keep trying over and over again and you develop your voice or you develop into a public speaker or whatever, I think you just realize that the worst that could happen isn't even as bad as what we think it is. And I think that is like a part of developing as a creator, as a speaker, as a professional.
I think it speaks to how your career's evolved too, I think, where it's like new challenges, fresh opportunities. Like there's a lot of fear involved for a lot of people, I feel like, but when you've seen good results happen from taking that leap, I feel like it gives you that trust in that process around like trusting your gut and sort of living your life around that sort of sense. And I love that too, man. I feel the same way. And it's like, it's just interesting. One thing I did pick your brain about at the little lunch break that we had was brand pages on LinkedIn and how people can really get the most out of that? Like, obviously, a lot of people that use LinkedIn work for companies and things like that. Like, how can those types of people use LinkedIn at its optimal sort of value?
Yeah, I think like there's a few different ways of thinking about that. I think one thing is to again you create a company page or you take over a company page and you're trying to build a brand presence. A lot of people will look at what competitors are doing and then think about, okay, what are they doing well, and then okay, that's what we should be doing. And again, I just think it's like a bit of a vicious cycle to be caught in, because you're just going to end up sounding and looking like everyone else. And especially in the B2B side of the world, where I do a lot of my work in B2B marketing, there's so much risk avoidance. And if you like look at a set of competitors, often they're doing the exact same thing, down to like their brand colors. Like, how many B2B brands are blue, right? And so I think a big mindset change, came for me when I was working in this content marketing world at LinkedIn for a while. And I remember kind of having the realization that if you look at the research and the studies that have been done, the things that stand out are the things that get remembered. And so if I was to create a B2B brand tomorrow, like I would make it like bright pink. I would have like, some kind of a mascot or a cartoon character, and I would just have it do everything that competitors aren't doing. And I think that's a great competitor audit, because you're thinking, what is everyone else doing? How can I stand out so that I'm more likely to be remembered, rather than how can I do what competitors are doing? And so I would apply that to the company page and to the brand presence is, how can I go left when everyone else is going right? Like, what does that look like? I think the best example for me on LinkedIn, if people want to check it out, is Monzo Bank, Monzo Bank. It's kind of like a neobank in the UK, because it is so different to the established banks and financial institutions. It shows obviously a very differentiated position, and you see that in the content and the way that it shows up. And just have a look at their LinkedIn posts, and you'll see it straight away. They take the piss. They poke fun at kind of professionals in the professional world, and they poke fun at being on LinkedIn in general. They have such a unique brand voice. And because of that, they are one of the most loved brands and company pages on LinkedIn. And so that for me is kind of part of the formula, is how can we actually like stand out and be different? Now, when I tell people that at events, people will come up to me afterwards and say like I'd love to do that, but like wait till you meet my board, or like have a listen to what these executives think about LinkedIn. And I get it, right? It's not always possible to do that. So if you're not creating the brand, if you don't own the direction of the brand, if you don't have buy-in, then you still need to find ways of standing out in a way that is, you can convince people at your company that this is the right direction. And so it looks like different things for different people. It could be something as small as getting your executives on camera talking about the brand. Like, that can be enough to differentiate you in the short term without having to change your brand colors to pink and, employ a mascot, right? So it looks like different things to different people and different brands, but it always comes back to standing out and being different on the platform. I think that is really, really important. And the way I would describe it is just, really try and take big swings at this thing. Like, take the big risks, like make the big plays wherever possible. That's really important when you're thinking about brand presence on LinkedIn. And there's loads I could talk about in terms of like the content specifics and like the brand and demand strategy and all that kind of stuff. But my one piece of advice for managing a brand on LinkedIn is just try and stand out and differentiate yourself, no matter where you are in your journey, right? No matter kind of what stage you're at.
And on your personal profiles, you're working at this company or whatever, what do you see works in that space around, growing a community, growing an audience, growing interest in whatever you're doing?
I guess there's a couple of things. Like, one is consistency. So you need to be really consistently, going out to that network. You can't just set up a page, post every now and again and expect the returns. Like, you do need to have consistency there. It's kind of the same as anything else. Like, I mean, if you're training for, a run, or you're going to the gym, you're trying to get in shape, it's just consistency is the most important thing. You could have a perfect diet, but if you're not following it, right, you're never really going to see the results. You can be the most technically perfect person at certain exercises. Again, if you're not doing it regularly, you're just not going to see the results. It's the same thing on LinkedIn. It's not just like, or any social platform, to be honest. Like, you can't just do it every now and again. You have to have a consistent baseline. That's kind of step one. That's really, really important. And then the second piece, I guess, is just going back to what we talked about earlier. It's like sharing your authentic point of view. I don't think AI can do it for you right now. I think maybe if you build up enough of a baseline, train an AI model on it, it can do like 80% of it for you. But you're always going to need your own unique perspective wherever possible. And then similar to a brand page, it's just about being creative and not just posting about your achievements every, whenever they come up, but it's developing a consistent way of sharing content. So a couple of examples, like if you're an executive, maybe it is, and you don't want to be, you're finding it difficult to share more about yourself. I think highlighting people around you works really well, like highlighting your employees, highlighting your team, telling stories from your kind of your day-to-day. I think that works really, really well. It's very shareable on LinkedIn. It's a really good format. If you are more on like the IC level and you're thinking about like, how can I get out there more on LinkedIn? A great piece of advice I got is every day you're doing things that are interesting and that is valuable to an audience. So how can you just package some of that up? It doesn't have to be this whole new thing, right? So an example for me is I often do strategy sessions with clients and talk about their content marketing strategy. I'll present research and I'll talk about some things that they can do. I can just take one slide or a couple of slides from that deck and share that on LinkedIn, right? Obviously anonymize it and kind of dress it up a little bit, but it's what I've talked about that week, right? It's what I'm talking to clients about. I've just packaged that up and put it on LinkedIn and I'm sharing my professional perspective. And I think anyone can do that. Because whether you're working in marketing and you're thinking about rebranding, like what is your perspective on that? Like what are your thoughts? What research is feeding into that? Maybe you're working in sales and you're learning a new, discovery method for using on clients or using with clients. How can you post about that and post your perspective? If you're a founder, you have got to be telling stories on LinkedIn and sharing your perspective. We see on LinkedIn, companies that have active founders that are telling stories, they get more leads at the end of the funnel from their company advertising than founders who are not sharing in their companies. And so we see this work. So again, different people in different stages, but the core thing you can do is be consistent, find something repeatable. Doesn't have to be, a net new thing. It can be something you're working on already. And then presenting that in a unique, creative way, given your own perspective, not just an AI perspective. I think if you can do these things, you're now starting to build a network as an individual and as a professional.
I love that. And I think one of the great things about LinkedIn is that you can really get like a deep insight into a workplace. I just feel by just looking at the types of people who work there, it's an extension of the website, really, just with different things. And it's like, all right, here's how free they let their employees go on social platforms talking about things. That's an attractive, valuable thing for a lot of people. It's like you can really see, how they like to operate and do things. So I think more people are starting to see. I'm just in my network around people who've maybe grown big on TikTok and Instagram. They're really coming around to LinkedIn now and seeing the different opportunities on how they can just showcase, because they're doing all that type of stuff, but on different platforms. And now it's just like, all right, well, they see the real benefits and value in showing all that type of stuff on LinkedIn. Because you're right. I feel like once you feel like you know someone, it just makes it so much easier. Like having a podcast, having a LinkedIn page, and being able to leverage, an audience and community into different things like opportunities and stuff has been wild, and the value that you can create both ways. And I just feel like it just gives it extra, it creates an environment for people to care more, I think, about what you're doing. Is there anything out there that, especially 2026, what should people be doing on the platform now, besides all the stuff that you said before? Is there anything sort of missing around updates and features? Are you guys, when you drop something new, reward people who use that function and feature?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, any time that we release like a new ad format or a new type of content, there's always like outsized engagement and reach with that format because it is different, right? It's new to the platform, so people are more likely to notice it. And so I guess the reward for experimenting with those new pieces of content is often you get outsized results from kind of jumping on that. And so a really good example here is like what we call the thought leader ad. It's basically just the ability for a company to sponsor an individual's piece of content. That's been around for a while now, but there are still companies and brands that haven't jumped on using that feature. And so they will probably miss out on the outsized engagement that was there at the very beginning. And if you're kind of a bit slow to adapt, you won't see that extra few percentage points of results that we get when it first launches. But what's really exciting about the Thought Leader ad and that format is that it still drives outsized engagement and impact. And so kind of going back to that piece around like, okay, so it's 2026, what should brands be using that's maybe new to the platform? If you're advertising and you're not using Thought Leader ads, you should really try and make it a core part of your strategy. And if you are using them in pieces here and there, I would say you should think about expanding that, because just have a look at the results compared to like a standard image or video that you're posting. Just see what's driving more results. And often it is the Thought Leader ad, because it goes back to an earlier point, like people engage with people and we love to hear from other people. So, with the Thought Leader ad, you can use your employees, right? So you can find your employee experts that are experts on a product or a solution, and you can post their content and sponsor their content. You can do the same with executives, who are maybe making announcements, who are talking about, again, new products or solutions, who are talking about certain customers. And then you can do it with external influencers as well. So it can be an industry influencer, can even be a customer. Like if you're working with a customer on a case study, unbelievable way of promoting that is actually post it from their page and then sponsor it from your page. So Thought Leader ads, I think, should be a huge part of your strategy, and you should be thinking about how you use those going forward. The other thing then is video, and we've been talking about this for a while, but there has been an explosion in video content, and this is what I spoke to you a little bit about in Adelaide, right? Has been the explosion of video content on the LinkedIn platform, and that comes from like big increases in demand, right? People are just watching more and more videos on LinkedIn, and then increases in supply now alongside that, where more brands and creators are posting more video. A lot of people are still trying to figure out what that looks like for them. But my advice is, you're in 2026, you've got to be experimenting with video on LinkedIn. And if you have been experimenting already, you should be trying to find out exactly what works, what's repeatable, and making that a core part of your strategy. So those are really the two big things for me on like a very tactical level, is how we're using these Thought Leader ads, and then how we're using video, both like on the paid side and the organic side. And then going forward, like thinking about future trends or what's coming next, I think events are going to have a huge role as part of a LinkedIn brand strategy going forward. So B2B marketers are investing massively in events. A lot of people that are listening now will have some kind of a brand event that is happening, or maybe they're attending an event. How can you package that up and put it on LinkedIn? Because today we might put up a post saying, hey, we're going to be at this event. And then maybe a few weeks later, you'll put up a post with like a highlight reel, right? And people think we've done a really good job there. But like the amount of content around an event can be huge and can be really, really powerful. It can be an entire ecosystem, right? Because you can have the kind of the pre-event ads driving registrations, building hype. During the event, you can go live on LinkedIn and have the event live streamed on the platform. And that's huge, because, that's the difference between having, 1,000 people at the event, great. But if you have it live streamed as well, you potentially have 1,000 in person plus 10,000 online, right? Depending on how much you've driven registrations and kind of built up hype around this. So you can really like 10x your event attendance by bringing that in. And then you have people posting from the event. You should have your executives and your employees posting. I've done some work with brands and checked, like, their keynote speakers often have, like, if you add them all together, the keynote speakers will have thousands to potentially millions of followers on the platform, and yet they don't post. So can we make sure that our keynote speakers are posting live from the stage, are talking about the event in some way? And then afterwards, can we do the highlight reels, but can we also take snippets, right? If we have it live, can't we take snippets of that and post it on LinkedIn to kind of help with our thought leadership? And so I think today events exist kind of separately to LinkedIn and to other social platforms, and we really focus on in-person experience, which is great. But I think going forward, it's thinking about, okay, what is the content ecosystem that lives around the event, and how can we make sure that we're maximizing that and that we're using like every part of the event in a really meaningful way. It genuinely, I believe, it can get you from reaching a couple of thousand people to hundreds of thousands when it's done right. And so going forward, that is definitely something to keep an eye on. So right now, thought leader ads and video is really something we should all be thinking about. Going forward, I would think about like, how do we maximize events on the platform, especially our own events, but even when we're going out to events, what does that look like?
Yeah, I love that. I've actually ran for 6 months, went live on LinkedIn every week with a guest. Just like getting to know it, kind of like this type of vibe, talking about like a specific topic. And that was like a couple of years ago, and just being able to like the invite was crazy. It's like these people, these companies, you could personally invite them, you get to see everyone. It was like, all right, this is crazy in terms of like insight and going live and having people the ability to like interact. I think like that is going to be like the key. And even now thinking about like with our community scene, like how can we activate that? And I've been thinking a lot about like LinkedIn lives and different things like that. So it's cool to see you guys are going in that direction, and it's going to be interesting to see what LinkedIn looks like in like 5 years time, because I'm tipping it's going to be a lot different than what it is now. But Robin, mate, appreciate your time, mate. Thank you so much for the insights and tips and you know into your journey. I mean, it's been incredible, and I reckon we've got to get you back on end of year.
Yeah, for sure. I'm open to it. I'm very happy to be spending time with you and to be on the podcast. I will say, if anyone has any questions, like, feel free to reach out to me. I've quoted kind of research in general, right? And I hate when people do that on a podcast. So if you have heard me talk about research and want more specifics, just ping me, send me a message on LinkedIn. I'm happy to answer any questions or to provide insights where I can. But yeah, massive thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on. Really enjoyed the conversation as always, and I'd be happy to be back.